Hello, everyone. My name is Paula Cooper, and I am a behavior specialist with Houston County Schools. I have been working in the field of special education for 23 years.
And my name is Denise Duke. I'm a teacher and behavior analyst with Houston County. I've been working in special education for 29 years.
For the next few minutes, we are going to share some strategies for behavior support at home during the distance learning time. The topics we are going to cover are distance learning behavior tips, preventative strategies, behavior is communication, and calming strategies. We are going to begin our presentation with some general preventive strategies for you to remember when you are helping your child with their schoolwork. We all realize distance learning may possibly be causing a significant amount of frustration for you and your child. There are many possible reasons for this frustration. Some of the following may be causing frustration in your home. Added stress on the parent who's trying to work and homeschool their child. Frustration from the child who does not understand what is going on and why they must do so much schoolwork at home. Or the child who does not understand why they cannot return to school. The first strategy is to remain calm, even when you don't feel calm. Remaining calm is an effective way to manage challenging behavior. Children often mirror our emotions. If the adult remains calm, the child will calm down more easily. Also, when you remain calm in a frustrating situation, you are modeling the appropriate behavior you want your child to display. The second strategy is to keep your voice at a neutral level when discussing schoolwork or behavior concerns. Often children will match their voice and actions to how you as the adult responds. If your child starts to raise their voice, you can model using a neutral tone of voice and then have your child practice this behavior. The third strategy is to teach, model, practice, and reinforce all the behaviors you want your child to exhibit. As parents, we need to make sure we teach our children exactly what we're expecting from them during this distance learning time. For example, at school during silent reading time, the students may be allowed to lay on the floor, sit in beanbag chairs, and or read at their desk. At home, you may want them to read in a designated area. You will need to teach this procedure, model the procedure, allow your child to practice, and then reinforce when they model the behavior appropriately. The fourth strategy is to acknowledge the appropriate behavior. The key for success at home is to reinforce the appropriate behavior or the behavior you want to see. All right, so when we begin discussing positive reinforcement, we often hear comments such as, I'm not going to bribe my child to do what they are supposed to do, or I'm not going to reinforce my child for doing what they are supposed to do. Positive reinforcement is not bribery. Let's be honest. We all need a little reinforcement to do what we're supposed to do. Here's a good example of positive reinforcement. Most adults go to work so they can get a paycheck. There may be other rewards they experience also, like hanging with coworkers, feeling good about themselves, and the ability to help others. At the end of the day, the main source of positive reinforcement for going to work is that paycheck. The paycheck is what motivates them to keep working. The same applies to kids who receive positive reinforcement for their good work. It keeps them motivated to keep working hard. All right, so let's talk about some ways to acknowledge appropriate behavior. You can give a high five, offering praise. Make sure that that praise is specific. So for example, Johnny, I like the way you sat at the table and completed your math assignment. Johnny, thank you for taking out the trash. Giving a hug or a pat on the back. Giving a thumbs up. Clapping and cheering. Small tangible reinforces spread out through the day. For example, a little Skittle, goldfish, small candy bars. I would think about what is reinforcing for your child and only letting them have these items as reinforcement for appropriate behavior. So for example, if Johnny can eat all the Skittles he wants using Skittles to reinforce positive behavior, those may not work as well as you would like if he has access to them all the time. So trying to limit that access to only when they're performing that behavior that you need to reinforce. Possible larger reinforcers are given weekly. For example, if your child completes all expected schoolwork for the week, you could let them earn extra outside time, extra TV time, extra video game time, or something like that. At this time, I think it's also important that we acknowledge that often as parents, we accidentally reinforce inappropriate behavior. And yes, I hate to admit it, but I have reinforced the inappropriate behaviors of my own children in the past. So here's a couple of examples of how this might occur. So attention can be very reinforcing. So even if it's negative attention, so for example, if you have a child who is purposely annoying his mom, and every time the mom says, stop, don't do that, the child is getting attention, although it's negative attention, that attention is still reinforcing that behavior. So ignoring this behavior can be sometimes the best way to stop annoying behaviors. A second example of reinforcing inappropriate behavior is when we give in. So if a parent tells a child they cannot play video games, the child begs and whines, and the parent gives in and lets them play video games, the child got what he wanted by begging and whining, and he will likely do it again to get what he wants. Okay, so those were just some general tips, and we're going to actually probably hit on those again as we go through this process. So you'll hear those again in some of the different things that we talk about. But next, we're going to move on to just some general distance learning tips for parents. This is a brand new world for parents, so just some things that you can do to help make this more successful for you and your child. So the first thing is just to set up a distraction-free work environment. So when possible, try to set up a designated work area for your child. This area should be away from other siblings. You should also try to avoid an area with a TV and or toys. And thirdly, try to find a location with limited traffic in and out of the room. I realize this may not be possible in all situations, depending on how many children you have in the home and how many adults you have working in the home. Just do the best you can to create a distraction-free work area. All right, so next here. So let's set realistic goals for each day. When appropriate, I would sit down at the beginning of each day with your child and list out the goals for the day. I would allow the student to have some say in what the goals for the day are, make a plan and stick to it, whatever that plan is. Do not try to add more after you and your child have created the goals for the day because they are having a really good day. On the other hand, if they're struggling completing the goals for the day, do not let them off the hook. Help them get through the goals for the day. You can and should adjust the goals based on the previous day.
And I'd like to add, if your child needs extra help to get through the day's tasks, make sure to provide extra praise for sticking with it. Also consider a little extra reinforcer for the extra effort it may have required. Without your help, your child could have chosen to melt down. Provide praise for accepting help.
Okay, so after setting goals for the day, make a checklist of activities to accomplish. So the next, and these actually kind of go together, the checklist, the frequent breaks, and we're going to show an example a little bit later, but give frequent breaks. Set up a work break schedule. You can use a timer to indicate when a specific activity is done and it is time to move on to the next activity. A lot of our kids in the school setting are used to using timers. Sometimes they're visual timers, sometimes they're a timer that just makes a noise. You know, you may have to play with that a little bit to see what works best for your child. And you're going to want to incorporate those breaks into the checklist of activities. So like I said before, here's just a little bit of an example of a checklist that incorporates a work break schedule. So I have listed here: eat breakfast, read for 20 minutes, math sorting activity, break, social studies video, PE activities, and break. So when Walker and I sat down, we decided the goals for today would be to read for 20 minutes, complete one math activity, one social studies activity, and PE. Then we completed our checklist with those activities listed. You can see I've built a work break schedule. I also have the boxes for him to check when he is done with the activity. You could also use this form to document when reinforcement for appropriate behavior was given. You can create this on a piece of notebook paper. It does not have to be fancy. Depending on the functioning level of your child, you may want to use pictures also.
And also, depending on your child's age and ability level, you may need to decrease either the number of activities they do before a break or the amount of time they work before a break.
Perfect. All right. All right, so our next one is have your child on the work on the most difficult subject first. So having your child work on that most difficult subject first will help them to go ahead and get that out of the way, and then they can move on to the rest of their work. So Walker doesn't like to read. Reading is the first activity of the day on his checklist. If you're having trouble getting your child to work on a subject area that's hard for them, start with something they have already mastered to build success, and then move on to more difficult tasks. Or even if it's something maybe they haven't mastered, but something they enjoy doing. Or you could also pair the difficult task with something they enjoy. So sometimes you just got to think out of the box with those types of, with those subjects that are a little bit more difficult. All right, so give small rewards in short intervals. So we're on tip number 6. So let's be honest, your child is not used to doing schoolwork at home. This is a brand new world for them. The reality is you're going to need to provide some type of reinforcement that, like we discussed earlier, you will need to make sure the reward is motivating to your child, and you will need to make sure your child understands what they must do to earn the reward. Remember, the reward does not have to be tangible. It is important to note you should be giving positive feedback at a ratio of 5-to-1. So for example, if you had to get onto your child for getting up from the work area, you will need to provide 4 positive recognitions to help change the behavior. And those positive recognitions don't all have to be about the behavior. They can be other positive interactions with you have with your child. But some of those positive recognitions need to be when he is sitting at the work area, even if he's only sitting there 20 seconds. Make sure you acknowledge him or her sitting in that work area. So make sure that you give that positive feedback, especially after you've had to redirect your child. This will help to reinforce the behavior and start helping them understand what your expectations are. All right. So this is an example of a form that we sometimes use with our students as far as I'm working for. This says very clearly that the chart clearly states the child is working for Cheetos and how many stars they must earn to gain that reward. You can create this at home. It doesn't have to be fancy like this. Also, if this is something that you would like, and you don't have the ability to make it home, this is something you can request from us as the behavior team also. Okay, so next, if your child is struggling with a certain subject area, have them work during hours when support is available. So having your child, and then also allowing your child to work during hours that are most productive for him or her. So for example, in my house, I wake up early and I begin my day at 8 a.m. because that is when I'm most productive. My teenager sleeps in and he does not start working on his schoolwork until around 2 in the afternoon. This works best for him. You may have to work together to figure out what works best for you and your child. And you will have to understand that sometimes those hours when your child is most productive may not be when there is support available. So if your child does need help in a subject area, make sure they're working when the support's available. Otherwise, they can work when it's most productive for them. All right. So the last tip is write down any triggers or outbursts and share with your child's teacher. Triggers are events or situations that precede a tantrum and or outburst. Take note of what time of day, what happened right before the tantrum or outburst, during what activity, and how did you respond, and how did the child respond. This information is important for you to share with your teachers so that they can help and provide you support to try to help deal with those situations and what you can do.
Like Paula just mentioned in the previous slide, taking note of triggers is really important because this will help you to determine what your child might be trying to tell you. Because what we all know is that behavior really is communication. So as a parent, it's really important that you note those things that maybe happen right before a meltdown, or what we frequently refer to as problem behavior, which is just an overarching term for anything that interferes with the good progress of your day. It could be something mild like just pushing work away, or it could be something pretty significant. But your child may be trying to tell you something, and looking at those triggers and then how you respond and then how your child responds to you is very, very important. So all of this is information that will help you understand what your child's communicating. Your student could be trying to tell you, I want that, I want something, or I was in the middle of something and you took that away from me. Or you made me stop doing something I enjoy to do something I don't really want to do. Maybe they could be telling you, I want you, or I want my sibling, or maybe I even want access to friends that I've not seen in a while. They could also be saying, stop it. Stop what you're doing right now. Stop making me do what we're doing. Or maybe, I've had enough of this. We've worked long enough. Or finally, this makes me feel better. I think I'll keep doing it. Telling your child no, or not now, or making them stop in the middle of a preferred activity could be a trigger for a tantrum or some other problem behavior like hitting or spitting. So, take a minute and think. Does it happen when your child's been told no? Does it happen when you've stopped? That's important to note. So, how do you respond to that? I want that. You took that away from me. You made me stop doing something I enjoy. First of all, as Paula mentioned previously, it's really important that we respond in a calm manner so that our child can match where we're at. And in the moment of something, if a request has been made that's reasonable and using words or sign language or gestures, try your best to grant a request. But if the request was made in a tone that you find bothersome, restate the way that you want it to sound so that you're modeling the appropriate behavior. Also, use a timer to signal the end of access to an activity or time or item. Make sure to provide praise for giving up that activity, and then make sure to let your child know when he or she may have it again. It's very important to make sure that you're providing that reinforcement and praise for the things that they give up. That way they can know when they can have it again. During this new time at home, we frequently get busy or distracted and don't realize how long our kiddos may have been doing things on their own. Or maybe we've been busy with a sibling or doing some of the many tasks that have to be done to keep our homes running. Have you noticed that your child displays problem behavior when this has happened? They may be telling you, hey, it's time for some time with me, Mama. I need access to you. Or, I really want to play with my sibling. You've had them busy long enough. So it's important to look at those times of when you've been busy for a while. It's easy for that time to get away before we've realized it. So how do we respond to that? Well, what we really want to make sure that we do is we give our children a more functional way to get access to what they're wanting. Sometimes it's us. Again, I'd like to remind you to stay calm. And if it's reasonable, try to grant the request, especially if they've made it in an appropriate way with words. It may have been loud words, may have been words that have been in a tone that you didn't like, but you can restate and ask your child to restate in that more appropriate tone. Model how you would want your child to ask for help. When you give your child a task to do, ask if they need help before you walk away, expecting him to do it independently. This is something that can be done to prevent that problem behavior. And if you can't break away from what you're doing, let your child know when you will be available. Consider setting a timer so they will know how long they'll have to wait for you. And then also, as we mentioned in that schedule earlier, schedule time in your day to spend time one-on-one with your child doing something fun together. When it appears that your child needs or wants your attention, if it's reasonable, try to give them what they need. Okay, and this next one. Does your child run away or start protesting the minute you mention a task, a chore, or something like that? Or does the problem behavior happen when they've been working for a while and appear to have hit their limit? They may be communicating the need for a break. I can't get this screen to go. How can you respond? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that they have hit their limit, or they say, stop it, or won't even engage. How can you respond? As we've mentioned before, stay calm, take a deep breath. Ask if there's something you can do to make the task easier, or ask if it's time to take a break. Make an effort to help your child get calm before the break is given, so that they see that the break is granted by asking, not by the problem behavior. And as always, you can ask if there's something you can do to make the task easier. More strategies that can be used to make tasks easier include setting a timer for a work break system, like we've mentioned previously. Maybe work 5 minutes, take a break for 5 minutes. Or you can break the work into smaller chunks, even cutting the paper if necessary. If handing an entire sheet of paper with work to your child appears to trigger the behavior, it's okay to cut the paper in half, or maybe even one piece of a work at a time. Just something that can help you get through the task so that there is distance between problem behavior and getting the break. Maybe you could take turns reading a passage. If you read a paragraph, I read a paragraph. Make sure you provide your reinforcement while your child is working. Thank you so much for keeping at it with me. You're doing a great job. And then using that I'm working for board that we referenced earlier, so your child knows that there's a payoff coming for when they've done the work.
All right, thank you, Denise. All right, so the last topic area that we're going to talk about is some calming strategies. So I think we all know that there are times when our students get frustrated and they have trouble de-escalating themselves. So here are some things that we are going to talk about that are going to help your child de-escalate. If your child becomes frustrated and or angry, here are some possible strategies they can try to help them calm down. During this calming time, I suggest you give your child some space while still making sure they are safe. You may have to model how to use the strategy to help your child calm down. So some examples of calming strategies are completing a puzzle. You're going to want to make sure the puzzle is not too difficult. Take a drawing and or coloring break. Allow your child to doodle, draw, and or color for a little while. Taking a reading break. Depending on your child, the reading is a great calming activity. Sometimes students will just turn the pages of a book and look at the pictures, or sometimes they're actually going to sit down and read the book. I would let them complete this calming strategy however they would like if they are not destroying the book. Another strategy is listening to music. We found that many of our students find listening to music a calming activity. Also fidgeting with stress balls or squishies. Sometimes just that ability to squeeze helps them to de-escalate and calm their bodies down. Deep breathing exercises. To help your child with deep breathing, you can say, breathe in like you're smelling a flower, and then breathe out like you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake. So it would just be like, all of these strategies will not work for all children. You'll need to determine what works best for your child. I would suggest practicing these strategies when your child's not in crisis. So this might be something you would do on one of your work break times, is you could practice one of these calming strategies, and then, help your child, teach them how to put these in place, and work with them and talk to them and see what they think is going to work best for them. All right, so thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation today. If you have any questions in regard to this presentation or behaviors in general, feel free to contact either Denise or myself at the email addresses you see on the screen. This has basically just been an overview of strategies. If you need help actually implementing some of the strategies that you've seen in this presentation with your specific child, you can contact us. We can help you with that. If there's anything behavior or, sometimes even academics may be causing some of the behaviors that you have questions with, you can email us and we'll try and get you the help that you need. Denise, do you have anything else to add?
I really appreciate this opportunity to share this information with families, and just want to echo what Paula has said. If you need any specifics in how to implement these, I'd be very, very happy to talk with you via email and reach out. Please don't be afraid to reach out for any help that you might need.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, and you guys have a great day.
Thanks.